As much as I try and as much as I can, I try to familiarize myself with the big name prospects, the most noteworthy prospects, as much as possible during the course of the college football season. So that way I'm not caught too off guard when it comes NFL draft season and NFL draft time. But no matter what, ultimately there are guys that slip through the cracks for me, guys that I start to hear buzz about, and I'm like, why the fuck is anybody talking about them? But then when I finally bother to sit down and take the time to review this prospects film and watch their games, I come away more and more impressed, and I start to understand what the buzz is about. And in certain cases, I don't think the buzz is as big as it frankly should be. And a guy that falls into that category this year, there are those guys every year. One of those guys for me has to be Kevin Dodd from Clemson, the redshirt junior, 6'5", 270 pounds. A lot of you know of him because of his big performances in the college football playoff this past year for Clemson, in particular the national title game against Alabama, where he had 3 sacks, and he was just a dominant force. He played like a man. He played like a beast. And you start to wonder, was this a guy that was just a blip on the radar, or just had some big games at the right time that really started to get him some buzz and attention? Or is there more to the story, and is there more to the film, and is there something that suggests that this guy could be a real impact player at the NFL level? And the more I've watched Kevin Dodd, and the more I watch Shaq Lawson, actually, frankly, the more Kevin Dodd started to stand out to me on film. The more I came away impressed with Kevin Dodd. In terms of what I like about his game, I like a lot of it, actually. Good height, good length, 6'5", 270 pounds. Plenty of height and length to play 4-3 defensive end, no question about it. And I think still that height and length would bode well for him if he played 3-4 outside linebacker. And I think he's got the athletic package to do either. A guy with a really good burst off of the snap, much better than Shaq Lawson's. I thought consistently Dodd was either the first or second Clemson defensive lineman off of the snap in 2015. And then really good initial quickness and just overall burst in athleticism. In tight spaces and open spaces, this is a guy that you could see being a guy who's hard to contend with because of that quickness, that burst, that explosiveness, that overall athleticism. He's got it in great abundance, which is impressive for a guy that's 6'5" and 270 pounds. Really good off of the snap. Very good initial quickness. Can get to the spot before the offensive tackle gets to the spot. Athletic enough to be able to adjust to plays, to be able to make plays in the open field. I saw him deployed at times in zone coverage and even at times at Clemson in 2015 man-to-man coverage, which I thought, really helped in terms of his visibility as a draft prospect, because teams will envision him more as a 3-4 outside linebacker because of the times. It wasn't a lot, but there were moments where you would see him drop back into zone coverage, and he seemed to have a decent natural feel for it. And the athleticism to be able to cover some backs and tight ends outside and in the flat because of that quickness and because of that athleticism. What I really like about him, though, and perhaps my favorite thing about him, in spite of the athleticism and quickness and the height and the length, is that he's got a really good motor. I mean, a tremendous motor to me. I love the effort level this guy puts forth consistently to try and play against the run, to try and get to the opposing quarterback, to chase down people in pursuit and make the tackle from the backside. Really, really good, impressive motor. There are certain things that I'm big on when it comes to defensive players, and motor and effort is one of them, and Kevin Dodd has a lot of that. I also like his ability to get penetration and collapse the edge in a 5 to 7 yard range. And I'll explain what I mean really quickly. As I look more and more at the defensive end prospects and the bigger name defensive end prospects in this draft, most notably Joey Bosa, Shaq Lawson, and Emmanuel Ogbah. One thing that concerns me about them a lot of times is that when it comes to trying to get pure penetration off of the edge and beat somebody with speed and quickness and explosiveness, it's like it takes them 9 yards to get to the backfield. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Is they're here, the quarterback is here, and a lot of times they'll get the penetration and they're 2 yards past the quarterback. So how much of a threat is that penetration really? How much of a real pass rushing threat off of the outside in terms of explosiveness are they? Well, I could see Kevin Dodd a lot of times be able to collapse in on the offensive tackle, be able to quickly get around that edge and be able to get there in a 5 yard, 6 yard, 7 yard area. A much better trait that he has than compared to a Bosa, a Lawson, his college teammate at Clemson, or Emmanuel Ogbah from Oklahoma State. I like that ability of his to be able to utilize that quickness, that burst off of the snap, the explosiveness, to be able to get his pass rush off of the edge to where he's actually in the quarterback's face. He's not 2 to 3 yards past him and collapsing the integrity of the defense and opening up all types of possibilities where the quarterback can just wait, let him go by, move to where he's not, and then still be able to go through his reads. Now, that's an impressive trait for Dodd to have, and I think could serve him very well at the NFL level. I also liked his nose for being a big game performer. I thought he had a good game against Notre Dame, decent game against North Carolina, played well against Oklahoma, saved his best for last in the national championship game against Alabama. A guy that the spotlight didn't seem to shine too bright for him, a guy that brought his biggest and his best when the biggest and best were needed. Kind of had some clutch ability there. And, sometimes that's hard to measure. It's an intangible. But to me, he showed that he had it. And that's, again, a very impressive thing. And a lot of things just in general about his game I really, really like. Now, with that said, just like with any prospect, there are concerns. And, I had to be careful not to fall in love too much with just Dodd's strengths because there are a lot of things on film that jumped out and a lot of things in general that kind of concern me. 6'5", 270 pounds, yes, he's got great height and length, but he's not very strong. He's not naturally strong. So it makes me concerned about his ability to hold up against more powerful offensive tackles at the NFL level. It makes me more concerned about his ability to hold up at the point of attack in the running game. Whether he's a guy that's going to be susceptible to the bull rush. Is he going to be a guy that you can easily get off balance? Because I think his leverage is pretty good. His pad level is pretty good. And he does a really good job with that. But, again, he's just not that naturally strong. He's going to need to get in the weight room and strengthen up. If he's going to play end in a 4-3, he could probably add 10 pounds. He's going to play in a 3-4. He just needs to get stronger with the weight that he has and carry it better, both in his lower and upper bodies especially. A lack of pass rush moves too. Here's a guy that at times could get to the quarterback, but one of those guys that at times, like I talked about with other defensive linemen in terms of their ability to, once that initial play is taken away, can they counter, can they do something else? At times I saw Kevin Dodd show me a rip move, a swim move, not really much of a spin move, not much of a bull rusher again because of the lack of natural strength. So you're kind of playing him as a finesse-only guy, and he really doesn't have the counter moves to be able to get somebody off of balance and then quickly change pace and adjust like he should for a guy that is that naturally long and that naturally quick and explosive. At times I thought he could have been even more productive than he actually was, considering especially the system that he played in, the team that he played for, and the talent that was around him on that Clemson defense. A lack of pass rush moves and a lack of counter moves, a lack of me at times to be able to set up an offensive tackle and be able to get him off balance. At the NFL level, even if he's playing left end, he's going up against right tackles. These are guys that are still professionals. They still can get the job done. And he's going to have to be better at getting them off balance than he was at the college level. And then we get to the Clemson factor here. And this is something I frankly should have talked about a little bit more with Shaq Lawson, is the fact that there could be products of the Clemson system. This is a Clemson system over the years to produce guys like Philip Merling and Gaines Adams. And let's face it, Vic Beasley didn't exactly set the world on fire as a rookie for the Falcons in 2015. So there has to be some concern there. And I frankly should have talked about this more with Shaq Lawson. I'll talk about it here with Kevin Dodd. Is it the fact that he played in that system that allowed him to do certain things that allowed him to be more productive than he really would be at the NFL level? On top of that, we do have to factor in that he was a bit of a one-year wonder in a lot of ways, and that in part could be because of the fact you had Beasley in front of him and you had Shaq Lawson in front of him, and that's something to be said there. But sometimes these one-year wonder guys can be scary because to me it's the college equivalent of a contract year at the NFL level. Guys that when they need to, when the money's on the line, ultimately, they'll play their best, but are they going to consistently play at their best? And for a guy that showed me this much talent and athleticism and upside, you would have thought that he would have been able to get on the field more earlier on in his career than he actually did. On top of that, you also got to look at the fact that he played on the other side of Shaq Lawson, whereas Shaq Lawson was getting a lot of double team and triple team blocking, and offenses were geared to go away from Shaq Lawson. Kevin Dodd got a lot of single blocking. He was playing against opposing teams' right tackles, and that's different compared to Shaq Lawson having to play against left tackles. It was Shaq Lawson that had to face off against a Ronnie Stanley. It wasn't a Kevin Dodd. A Kevin Dodd could go at that weaker right tackle and do it with a lot of single blocking. So how much did he benefit from playing on the other side of Shaq Lawson? Are those statistics, is that production a bit of fool's gold? Other big thing that concerns me about Kevin Dodd is we're talking about prospects. He's a redshirt junior coming out of Clemson, and he was only a 1-year real productive player. But he's going to be 24 in July. That's kind of old for a prospect. And that doesn't exclude him from being a first-round pick. It doesn't. I mean, we've seen 28, 29-year-old quarterbacks win the first round. See Brandon Weeden in the Cleveland Browns. 27-year-old offensive guards from Baylor named Danny Watkins get taken in the first round by Philadelphia Eagles. The Chicago Bears taking a raw offensive tackle, 25 years of age, out of Oregon named Kyle Long in 2013. These guys sometimes that are in their mid-20s can still be taken in round 1. But again, you're talking about a guy that's raw, that needs some work, was a bit of a 1-year flash wonder. He's already going to be 24 years of age in July. Is that a guy that you really want to invest a super high first-round pick in, knowing he might not be incredibly productive immediately because he needs some work, and he's already going to be 24 years of age to begin with when he starts his rookie year? It's a legitimate concern. In terms of an NFL comparison for him, I think the safest one, the most standard one you're probably going to see across the board is Chandler Jones, and it makes sense. Two guys that are athletic enough to play the 4-3 or 3-4, have good height, good length, good burst in athleticism, and put up some very good numbers in their last year, play with very good motors, high-effort type of players. Consistency could be a bit of a question. Both guys coming out of college, Chandler Jones out of Syracuse, Kevin Dodd coming out of Clemson, very raw in terms of their technique, lacking polish in their game. And guys that, like I said, kind of 1-year wonders, and you wonder if they're going to be able to produce consistently at the NFL level. Now, Chandler Jones, his problem in part was due to durability questions and his ability to stay healthy. But, these are guys, again, that were both very, very raw. And both guys that needed to add strength. I think Chandler Jones was naturally stronger coming out of Syracuse than Kevin Dodd is coming out of Clemson. But two guys that needed to add strength in order to be productive and effective and show their star potential at the NFL level. Chandler Jones did it. It's going to be incumbent upon Kevin Dodd to do the same thing. Overall, there's a lot I like about him. I think he's really an under-the-radar prospect. And at first, when I was talking about people were mocking Kevin Dodd to be drafted ahead of Shaq Lawson, I said, well, that's the stupidity of the process and this and that. But the fact of the matter is he was a very productive player in 2015, even if he benefited from the circumstance and situation. As I watched him and went back and revisited it more and more, I really started to come away impressed with his height, his length, his athleticism, the motor that he played with, his potential to fit as an edge rusher, both as a 4-3 defensive end and as a 3-4 outside linebacker, putting him in play for more teams than somebody like a Joey Bosa or an Emmanuel Ogbah or a Shaq Lawson. I think Dodd, in a class that's lacking in really effective 3-4 outside linebackers, could be one of those guys that really benefits and could see his draft stock raised as a result because he will be one of those guys that grades out among the best in terms of that position and potential at the NFL level. The Clemson system concerns me. The lack of big impact defensive linemen to come out of Clemson has to be a legitimate concern. Gaines Adams and Merling and, like I said, Vic Beasley didn't light the world on fire in 2015 as a rookie for the Falcons either. He was a 1-year wonder in terms of production. And sometimes, like I said, it's the college equivalent to an NFL contract year. Now that they know that they have the chance to go to the draft, do they play their best just because they're trying to get the money? And do they play above themselves and then they come back to reality after the fact? They get content with what they get? That's a possibility. And he's really raw as an edge rusher. He needs a lot of work in terms of developing a pass rush repertoire, being able to establish some effective counter moves. He needs to definitely get stronger because otherwise he's going to be strictly a finesse player. He could still be an effective, really good finesse player, but a finesse player nonetheless. And I think the age is a concern. Again, 24 years old in July. So heading into his rookie year, where a lot of other teams are going to be spending first-round picks on guys that are about to turn 21 or 22, this guy will already be 24. So if you take him as in the first round, you're talking about a guy that a rookie contract he could have up to 5 years. You're talking about a guy potentially that at the end of his rookie contract is already 28 years of age. He would have already been halfway through perhaps the peak of his career. And when you're talking about the NFL draft and the importance of it, one of the important things about it is being able to get guys as many years as possible at a low cap number in the best years of their career. And when you look at a guy, you want to get as many 30 and under age seasons out of him as you possibly can. Kevin Dodd is already starting off as a huge deficit. where other defensive linemen in this draft, like the Bosa's, the Lawsons, the Ogbas, are 21, 22 years of age. You could get 7, 8, 9, 30 and under seasons out of them. When you talk about Kevin Dodd, you're talking about getting more of 6 to 7 potentially. And I think some teams could drop him on the board a little bit as a result. I personally think when you get past the age factor and the rawness, he has top 10 potential in terms of his physical talents and what he could be, his athleticism, his explosiveness, the motor that he plays with, his propensity to be able to get penetration in the 5 to 7 yard window in the pocket behind the line of scrimmage, his ability to show up in the big games. I think this is a guy with top 10 potential. In terms of overall talent level and based off of in part because of the age, put him more as maybe a top 15 to top 25 pick in this draft. I really think, honestly, that he does have better NFL potential than Joey Bosa, Emmanuel Ogbah, and even his college teammate Shaq Lawson. The more I've watched it, and this is something you have to keep in mind as I go through the process of looking at these prospects, even when I've said things about them before, there's times where as I watch other prospects, that guys that kind of surprise me, things can change. You know, it's very fluid. And I will tell you right now, I'm very bullish on Kevin Dodd and his prospects, even being a 24-year-old prospect heading into the 2016 NFL season. I'd be stunned if this guy wasn't taken in the first round. I'd be stunned if he wasn't taken in the first 20 picks. And I most certainly would be stunned if he wasn't taken before Shaq Lawson. And furthermore, if he was 22 years of age or 21 years of age, I'd be really stunned, frankly, if he didn't end up as a top 12 or 13 pick in the 2016 NFL Draft. I think the upside with this guy is tremendous, and he has more upside outside of DeForest Buckner than any defensive end in the 2016 NFL Draft. And with that lack of quality 3-4 natural edge rushers, that's where it could really come into play for him, where he ends up getting taken in the top 20. Because behind maybe a Noah Spence, a lot of teams are going to look at Dodd as the next best thing and the most natural fit for that position and the most likely to be a dominant edge rusher at the NFL level.